2, 1.
Ready.
Just relax and enjoy the ride.
In crowd, 815, in crowd, 815, in crowd, 815, in crowd, 815, 815.
City of DeKalb. They've got something coming up. Go figure. Barbed wire weekend is what they're calling it. And Brad is on with us this morning. Good morning to you, Brad.
Good morning, Greg and Tom. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us today. Before we get into all things DeKalb County and the Convention and Visitors Bureau and this special weekend, tell us about you. Where did you grow up and go to school, and how'd you find yourself working for the DeKalb County Convention and Visitors Bureau?
No, sure thing. I'm very much a part of the 815, gentlemen. I was born here in DeKalb, although I wasn't raised here. My parents were originally from South Beloit, and so shortly after I was born, moved back to South Beloit. So I grew up in South Beloit in Rockton and went to Hononegah High School, and then back to NIU to go to college. Spent 4 years here in college, and then got my first job, believe it or not, in the media business, doing radio.
Okay.
Started at WRHL in Rochelle. Did some radio at WLUV up in beautiful Loves Park, Illinois.
Oh, the Love Pump. Joe Salvi.
Legend, Mr. Salvi.
Yeah, I worked for him as well.
Yeah, was the voice of the McChesney Park Harlem Huskies for a couple of years. But some people of a certain age may remember my time as a reporter and anchor and sports anchor up at WIFR in Rockford. Where I worked for 5 years, and what a great experience that was, working with some great people and a lot of great memories up there, and really kind of cut my teeth in the media business. And I came back to NIU, got an opportunity to produce our coaches shows and do a lot of promotions and marketing on the video and media side for NIU. And I did that for over 20 years, produce our coaches show, Inside Husky Sports. I was the host of that show for 10 of those 20 years, besides being the producer and director. And then I moved into university administration, and I was our media relations director, did our marketing and communications effort, and I was a spokesperson for NIU, and then came full circle and went back and did a little bit of fundraising for NIU athletics. So all total, I worked 30 years at NIU, but part of that time, I was also got involved in the DeKalb County Convention and Visitors Bureau. And that's our destination marketing organization for DeKalb County, very much like the Rockford area CVB up in the Rockford neck of the woods. And I was on that board for about 11 years and was the chair of the board. And when I cycled off the board and retired for NIU, they hired me, foolishly enough, to kind of be a jack of all trades. And my title is Special Projects Manager. And it's a part-time gig, but very much we're doing something every day. And we have a great team. It's a small team, but a great team. Our executive director is Courtney Strohacker. Catherine McLaughlin is our marketing director. And then we have a great marketing assistant, Alexis Avalos. So we call ourselves small but mighty. But it's a great group. I'm kind of like Grandpa Brad, guys. But I tell people, they're like, "How are you enjoying retirement, Brad?" I said, "I'm failing it miserably and loving it."
That's a good way to look at it. That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a great job. And if you would have asked me, 10, 20 years ago, would I be employed in tourism, travel in the area? And I probably would have said, well, I'd be involved in some way, maybe through my efforts on the board, but I didn't think I would be employed by it. But it's really, with everything that I've done throughout my career, it's kind of a great fit. When I was at NIU, people said I was one of the biggest cheerleaders for NIU, and I'm still a big cheerleader for NIU as my alma mater and working so closely with the institution. But now I get a chance to be a cheerleader for all great things in DeKalb County. And so that's why I'm excited to be with you here this morning.
For those who don't get out to DeKalb or Sycamore very often, we hear about the Corn Fest, right? And maybe we hear about Barbed Wire Weekend. Is there what is there? And of course NIU, all things NIU. What is there something that you could say is maybe one of those little known facts that this is something that one of the gems of DeKalb County that people tend to overlook, that you're kind of confused why they overlook it?
That great question. And I'll give you a couple of things. One of the things that we have here is we have some great makers. And those are the folks that either grow products, make products that are sold not only throughout the region and throughout the state of Illinois, but all across the country and across the world in some cases. And we have 5 organizations or 5 businesses that are a part of the state of Illinois' Illinois Made program. And among them are our distillery, Whiskey Acres, located in DeKalb, award-winning spirits, including some fantastic bourbons and ryes. Jonah Mac Orchard, which is opening here in just a few weeks at the end of August. Obviously, it's an apple orchard, but they have a corn maze. They have a visitor center there, a cider house, they call it. Fantastic apple cider, hard cider, amazing destination to go in the fall. We have 2 wineries, Prairie State Winery in beautiful Genoa and Waterman Winery in Waterman, Illinois. And so these are, we call our Illinois makers. We also have Angie Sugar Buzz Bakery down in Sandwich, Illinois, and Sub 70. And I heard Tom talking before we went on about golf. And Sub 70 is based in Sycamore, and they make high-end golf clubs, but for a very bargain price. And how good are their golf clubs? We have there's several professional golfers on the PGA Tour, on the Senior Tour, on the Korn Ferry Tour that are playing their golf clubs. So that's kind of some of the hidden gems that we have here in DeKalb County, and great places to visit, to explore, and to partake in when they pay a visit to us.
Nice. Tom will take some of those clubs.
I need some.
They're fantastic. It's online. You can go to their shop right in downtown Sycamore on State Street and get a fitting. And we're online. If you check them out online or check out some of their videos on YouTube, it's just a fantastic brand. And we're very excited that they are now designated as a Illinois maker, an official Illinois maker through the Illinois Office of Tourism.
Cool. You didn't lose a club when you fell in the water hazard, did you, Tom?
No, I did not. I just lost my dignity and 1 golf ball. Wow. A moment I will never live down.
Well, and the 3 people that saw it with you, right? So you're okay. We're all right.
Yeah.
No other video evidence. Barbed Wire Weekend is a ways away yet, but it'll be here before you know it, right? So tell us, what is Barbed Wire Weekend?
Well, as you mentioned, one of the legacies of the DeKalb County area, and in DeKalb in particular, is barbed wire. And of course, our barbed wire barons, as they are known, Joseph Glidden is one of them, and the others are Isaac Elwood and Jacob Haish. Not only were they purveyors of barbed wire, it was a massive industry in the late 1800s. They were among the richest men in the country at that time, and they also were the founders of Northern Illinois University. So 3 very instrumental historic figures that are celebrated and renowned even today. And but this is going to be the 150th anniversary of the patent for Joseph Glidden's winner. And that is the design that really was the, I guess, the launching for the catalyst for the explosion of barbed wire. And so to commemorate that anniversary, the Glidden Homestead, which is run by a descendant of Jacob Haish and Jesse Haish LaRue, and the great board that they have over there, they are hosting a barbed wire weekend, which is scheduled for September 28th and 29th. Now, there is a barbed wire society that really is, these are fans and groups that study barbed wire and that celebrate barbed wire. And they have conferences all over the country, annual conference. And since this is the 150th anniversary of the Patent for the Winner, they're having their conference here in DeKalb at Northern Illinois University on that weekend. So along with the conference, there's going to be various events that will be celebrating that. There'll be events at the Glidden Homestead, which is right on Route 38. Essentially, the backyard for the Glidden Homestead is Northern Illinois University. That property that was owned by the Glidden family and part of it also owned by the Elwood family, that eventually became the Castle on the Hill, Altgeld Hall, and Northern Illinois University. So it's literally almost on the grounds of Northern Illinois University. That's where barbed wire was invented. So very easy to get to, but there will also be tours of various farms in the area, historic locations. Obviously, the Elwood House, which is a beautiful mansion maintained by the DeKalb Park District, and that is nearby in DeKalb. And so there'll be a lot of different events associated with that. There'll be a dinner, but it's a big weekend here. And so there's not only barbed wire weekend, but there's other things going on in DeKalb and DeKalb County on that weekend. So we're really excited to have these people coming from not only all over the country, but really all over the world to celebrate this invention that essentially changed the world and continues to make its mark today.
I put the link in the chat so people can get to the website really, really easily. And anyone who's not been involved in the farming community at all probably has no idea how much barbed wire is used and how prevalent it is across the country. And it's once you kind of stop and think about that, it's no wonder that the guy who invented the best form of barbed wire got stinking filthy rich.
Yeah. But the one thing about these gentlemen, the barbed wire barons, obviously Joseph Glidden, Isaac Elwood, Jacob Haish, but they were also, the reason that they're celebrated today, and if you come into the community, you see their names everywhere, along with other individuals from that era, is that they were very philanthropic. And so, they've established a legacy here and really helped develop DeKalb, Sycamore, DeKalb County, and of course, Northern Illinois University. So these were, more than just gentlemen that were, very creative, obviously very innovative. There's a lot of agricultural innovation. That's another thing that DeKalb County is known for. Obviously, people are familiar with the flying ear of corn from the old DeKalb ag days. But these folks made a mark by giving back to their community, and that's why they're so celebrated today. And that's why there was other forms of barbed wire, but what these guys did, particularly Joseph Glidden, who was the first one, they created a technique that it could be mass produced.
Right.
That's the reason why it was such a big deal back there in the 1860s, and why it's still a big deal today.
It's a pretty amazing story, and you get to hear all about it at DeKalb County Barbed Wire Weekend, September 28th and 29th at the Glidden Homestead, 150th anniversary in celebration of Glidden's The Winner patent, because there was a bunch of different styles of barbed wire, but only one was able to be mass produced. So quickly and easily and efficiently. And there it is. You see it everywhere.
Well, and as you guys know, and many people in the 815 know, DeKalb, like you mentioned it. So, hey, from the Barb City, Brad Hoy. And, and the name of the high school mascot are the Barbs, Barbie Crow. So, so it's very much ingrained in the community. One of the things during Barbed Wire Weekend, and folks that are going to come down and visit during that time, the merchants on Saturday, the 28th, will be having their back alley market. That's something that they have a couple of times a year, one in the fall and one in the spring, and that brings in hundreds, if not thousands, of people to check out some of the different items. And it's a flea market, not only for local merchants but for people from all over the region. And so some of the businesses are participating, and they're going to have their windows painted. There'll be a barbed wire going all around through the downtown DeKalb on our merchants' windows. So that'll be something very cool to see. And then on Sunday, the 29th, is our annual DeKalb Corn Classic Road Race. And that will bring in hundreds of folks to the county, and in DeKalb in particular. So there's a lot going on that weekend. So I encourage folks to come down for the entire weekend, see all the historic places that we do, go to these events, stay in our hotels, and visit our fantastic restaurants and attractions that we have here.
There's a lot more to do and see in DeKalb than NIU. It's a whole lot more than that, just that. So, all right. Well, before we
Such a beautiful area,
before we get to trivia, we're gonna bring on our second guest here in just a second. So Andrea, be standing by. Before we bring Andrea on and do a little Tom Warner trivia, anything we didn't ask you about today, Brad, that you wanted to make sure we touch on before we move on?
Well, you talked about Corn Fest, and that's coming up at the end of August. There are some really big festivals and events coming up. You mentioned NIU football kicks off on August 31st against Western Illinois. So an intrastate rivalry. So we'll have fans from both NIU and the Leathernecks coming in that. The weekend before is Corn Fest. Another huge festival that is here is Pumpkin Fest in Sycamore in late October. And then in early September is the Sandwich Fair. And I know this is county fair time in the 815. When you're talking about the Winnebago County Fair, the Boone County Fair, the DeKalb County Fair is called the Sandwich Fair, and it's in Sandwich. And it is one of the biggest county fairs.
It's a big deal.
Illinois. It is huge. And if folks haven't been there, I encourage you to take the trip down to Sandwich in the southeastern corner of DeKalb County. It is a experience. So that's in early September. I think it's September 5th through the 8th. So we've got a lot going on in the fall, but still some fun things coming up here in the weeks ahead.
Awesome. Good deal. For all things DeKalb County, check out the website, DeKalbCountyCVB.com.
Absolutely.
Link is in the chat. Easy to find. And a lot of fun to be had in the DeKalb Sycamore Sandwich area around all over DeKalb County. Andrea, you ever been to DeKalb County?
I've been to DeKalb County a few times, and I'm looking forward to that Sandwich Fair because Riley Green is playing there this year.
Yes.
So excited.
Awesome. Well, before we get into all things Andrea and Blue 815, it's time for some Tom trivia. I need a sounder for you, Tom. I got to come up with something. For now, we're just going to do this right here. Only because it's short and sweet and kind of dynamic. Okay, Tom, what do you got for trivia this week?
A little bit anticlimactic, but hey, we'll work on that one. All right. Well, poor Andrea, she's jumping right into the fire. That's not even fair. She didn't even get a chance to warm up.
I'm not even great at trivia either.
We're a team. We're a team, Brad and Andrea. We're a team.
You're a team. You're all three. You're all three. No, you won't need it. Don't worry. All right, here we go. Question number 1, movie locations. In which country was the movie franchise Lord of the Rings filmed? Once again, in which country was the movie franchise Lord of the Rings filmed?
I'm pretty sure I know this one, guys. Do you have a guess?
Three, I believe, filmed in one country.
I'm gonna throw out a random guess of like Scotland. I don't know.
Good guess. I don't believe that's the
Very
answer,
good
though.
guess.
I would say Iceland.
Also a good guess. I'm pretty sure, though, everything was filmed in New Zealand. I think it was down
New Zealand.
under.
Okay.
New Zealand is correct. New Zealand is correct. But both of those are very good guesses.
Well, we both picked island countries.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All would have made
All
sense.
right. All right. Here is the next one. I've got 5. I've got 6 of them here. On with 3 of them. Here we go. How many points do you need for a victory in a game of pickleball? Assuming, of course, that you got to win by 2. So forget the tie thing. If you win by 2, how many points do you need for a victory in the game of pickleball? A game which I've never played.
I know this one.
Okay, good.
11.
11. 11 is correct. Nicely done. All right.
I got the pickleball paddles for a birthday gift, but I haven't used them yet, so they're still brand new.
Get out there, Greg.
I got to get out there.
All right. Here is the final question. This is a multiple guess, so but it's a fun one, I think. According to Energy Star, and I don't know if it's .com or what, I think it's .com. The United States, it is the United States Environmental Agency's energy saving. It's not a .com. Average person does this at least 33 times per day. Is it flip a light switch on or off, or the refrigerator door? Once again, according to the United States Environmental Agency Energy Saving Program, the average person does this at least 33 times per day. Is it flip a light switch on or off, or open the refrigerator door? Here we go.
I'll jump in and get. I'll take the first guess. I'm going to say the light switch, because if I'm opening the refrigerator door 33 times a day, holy cow!
I agree with you, Brad. I don't know. Do you have any opinion on that, Andrea?
Well, I'm home all summer and don't work in the summers, and I would go with opening the refrigerator based on my own habits.
Andrea is the winner. Look at that. She comes in with no practice, no nothing. She nails it. She nails it. Way to go. You know what's really funny? Brad, you are exactly right. If you open the refrigerator 33 times a day, you're going to weigh about 8,000 pounds. I went by the refrigerator yesterday and I opened it up. I'm like, what am I doing? I shut it.
We're off to a great start.
I let my dog out. And I came back and I opened it up again. I'm like, what am I doing? And then I grabbed the water out. Yeah.
Well, if you have a family, and this is where, if you have a family and you're making meals for your family and stuff, I can see that happening very easily.
True. We have 6 kids. So when all the kids were still in the house, I'm sure that refrigerator door opened more than 33 times.
I would say maybe 50 times a day, Greg.
Yeah.
I have no kids, and I'm probably still opening that.
Yeah, this is my wife works basically every day, Monday. She doesn't work Mondays, but anyway, I'm home most of the day because I do trivia at night. That's essentially my night job, and so I'm constantly walking by the fridge. It's a complete habit. Open it up. What am I doing? The same stuff is in there that was in there 5 minutes ago, and I shut it. So I love that question. I'm like, oh my God, that's a great question. I got to use it.
Maybe you want to see if it's still there, Tom.
That's right.
Yeah,
you know when that light goes off, you never know what's going to happen. What's going on in there?
Well, I've seen that commercial where the insurer is picking up the peach or the orange juice and moving it. I don't know what's happening inside that fridge. You know, it's like Toy Story.
My mother-in-law has a sign in her kitchen that says, "Thou shalt not weigh more than thy refrigerator." So I will leave it at that. And Brad, thank you for coming on today. I'm sure we'll catch up with you again as we promote things DeKalb County for you. All right, buddy?
Oh, yeah. I enjoyed it. Thank you, gentlemen. And Andrea, pleasure meeting you.
You as well. Thank you.
Have a
great Come on down to DeKalb County.
Go Huskies.
Go Huskies.
Go Huskies.
our guest this morning. Marshmallows Hope is an organization that's fairly young, has not been around all that long. So maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. And we are lucky enough to have Laura to come on the show with us today and explain all about what Marshmallows Hope is all about. So Laura, thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to rearrange the screen slightly here. Boom, boom, boom. Put you in the feature spot right there. And as we always like to do, Laura, we like to learn about you first. So before we get into your organization, tell us about Laura Kane. Where'd you grow up and go to school? And what was your career aspirations? And how'd you end up here?
Well, so I actually grew up in Florida. I grew up in a little town called Davenport, right in between Orlando and Tampa. Disney World was my first job. And I worked there until I was 21 doing like customer service and character entertainment. So it was a lot of fun. When I was 28, I moved here to Rockford, Illinois. So the majority of my career was in sales and customer service throughout my lifetime.
Okay. So was there, obviously working at Disney gave you a really cool experience because what they do for customer service is world renowned. That gave you a great launch pad to start a career, didn't it?
Yeah, they have the Disney University that you go to learn how to best treat their guests. So yeah, it was amazing.
I'll put you on the spot just a little bit. Is there a mantra or a slogan or a saying or something that they really, really ingrained into you that sticks with you today that you still remind yourself every once in a while of, hey, this is the way to do it?
Believe it or not, pointing. That was like the big thing. You know, if you were directing somebody to do something or go somewhere, you were not allowed to point. And so to this day, like when I'm given directions, I use my hands and I'm always pointing with both fingers.
No one finger pointing.
Right. Yeah. It was rude. You couldn't do it.
I've heard that before. Yeah. If you have the time, guide the person to where they need to go. If you just absolutely don't, use your whole hand and do the whole directing, not pointing thing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So you make the move to Northern Illinois and get settled into here. And at some point you start Marshmallows Hope. And obviously we want to know why you call it Marshmallows Hope and what it is that you do. So what kind of led up to the start of Marshmallows Hope?
Well, it was it was the most tragic time in my life. So in 2018, I lost my 14-year-old son to suicide. What at the time when it happened, if you would have asked me, I never knew my child was hurting. He was never diagnosed with depression or anything of the sort. But that journey later on, 2 years after his death, COVID happened and I began to hear about more youth suicides. And I felt compelled that I needed to drive change. And so we'll get into that in more detail. But why I called it Marshmallows, it was Zachary's nickname when he was young, and he actually used to hate it. He used to be, don't call me that. That's such a dumb name. So I can actually hear him laughing at me like, seriously, Mom, you named it Marshmallows? But I just didn't want it to be like the typical Zachary Burkholz Foundation or, I wanted people to I wanted it to be catchy and for people to ask questions, right?
That's a lot of wisdom in there. I believe there's a lot of wisdom in that, especially like your experience working with Disney and stuff. You kind of realize it's things can easily fall into the mass white noise that is our life. So to stick out, you got to do something a little bit different. So kudos to your choice to do that.
Thank you. And HOPE is actually an acronym for Hold On, Pain Ends. We want to teach people that pain is temporary, or it becomes manageable. And if you just hold on a little bit longer, you'll get through whatever it is that you're going through in that moment.
That, you know what? That's the first I've heard of that. I'm putting that in the chat right now because I want to see that in print in front of my eyes. HOPE, hold on, pain ends. Man, that's great. That's encouraging because we need to hear that. We all need to hear that. It's not what's the way to put this? I guess we are not all immune to sad feelings, to hurt feelings, to feelings. we all have a wide range of feelings that we deal with, and sometimes that's a wonderful, great thing, a mountaintop experience, and sometimes it's a valley. And trying to understand the person who doesn't consistently live in the meadows of life, the slowness of, and there are people like that, but most of us aren't. There's lots of ups and downs. So like you say, your son never gave you any indication that he was struggling with stuff. And was there, hindsight being 2020, was there something that you were like, maybe that meant something that I didn't really grasp at the time?
Well, so after his death and throughout the journey of starting Marshmallows, I really wanted to find answers, which as a suicide survivor, I can tell you, you never really get the answers that you're looking for. But what I did find, I went back to school to educate myself on this topic. So I graduated with a master's of social work from Aurora University. And the end game is to become a licensed clinical social worker. But through that journey, I can actually check off all of the warning signs, all of the red flag signs that I missed, that are so easily confused by normal teenage angst. So sadly, we were victims of domestic violence. So trauma is one of the highest contributors to suicide. Unfortunately, the kid's dad was abusive, and I think that carried on. Even though I was the mom that left and did everything right, still from a young age, I think that was a contributing factor. Also in school, kids find things, they can only see things in the now, right? Like what they're going through is so impactful to their lives in the moment, right? And so they don't have the ability to understand that, like we say, that pain is going to subside. And so he was dealing with some things, some accusations in school. And I think that was really, he was just starting high school. So he kind of started his high school career or his high school journey without his best friend. They had a fallout. And so those types of things, I think, are ultimately what were truly affecting him, was that he couldn't see past how am I going to survive this? So.
Yeah. And it seems that, again, this is hindsight being 2020. You think that, wow, how important is it to be multiply connected in different areas of life so that you're not so dependent on one thing? Like you say, like a best friend. If you have one best friend and nothing else in the world seems to matter but that one best friend, it's
Right.
hard to get over that falling out because you don't have anything else to kind of focus on. And having multiple things that interest you, that give you some joy in life, it's really important to find those multiple things. So Marshmallows Hope, you start this, what was it, been 5 years now, 4 years?
It's actually 3 years, and it's 3 years, 11 months old. On September 15th, it'll actually be our 4-year anniversary.
Okay, so right there the same week as Kevin's event for SOS, which you work kind of hand in hand with a little bit. Can you tell us about the relationship you have with other organizations and how Marshmallows Hope fits into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I believe that collaboration is the key to prevention. The more that we collaborate with other organizations, the more that we can provide more services and more resources for the families and the people that we serve. And so Kevin Polkey's SOS, Shatter Our Silence specifically, back during COVID, again, COVID was, extremely difficult for a lot of people, but I feel like that's really what pushed me into my greatest purpose. So during COVID, I wrote a book and Kevin reached out to me and said, hey, would you like to be on my podcast? And then after that moment, we hit it off and he invited me to be part of his Shatter Our Silence board. And so what we do through Shatter Our Silence is Kevin actually provides education about the at-risk warning signs for youth and young adults who may be struggling with suicidal thoughts. And so he goes around and he educates people in the community. So I've learned through that education is key to prevention. The more people that we can educate, the more people that we can teach about the warning signs. Again, I was that mom who didn't know, right? And who thought that there were no warning signs. Had I known what to look for, then maybe my journey or my story would be different today. So, so definitely it's huge. Kevin has been a huge part of Marshmallow's Hope. He's a huge advocate of our org. And he was actually the first person to truly believe in our mission. In our mentorship program, we contracted therapists that were employed by Kevin when we initially started to provide pro bono counseling services. So he is an extremely big part of Marshmallows. His son, Caleb Polkey, actually is one of our therapists here at Marshmallows. So we just love and appreciate the Polkeys all around.
So you do offer some services, at least, that cost nothing. They're absolutely free.
All of our services are absolutely free. So, you know, when I started Marshmallow's Hope, it started as a mentorship program. I started picking up kids, taking them out to eat, going bowling, doing one-on-one activities with them. But while I was mentoring these kids, I quickly realized that there was there was a kind of a hole in our community that we needed to fill, and that was the wait list for kids to actually get into treatment. Some kids were having to wait 3 months, some kids were having to wait 6 months. And when you have a child who's truly struggling with suicidal ideations, it's detrimental that we get them into services immediately. So Marshmallows has actually partnered with Rosecrans, and what we do is we're just that immediate response hub where kids get referred to us. They come to us within 24 to 48 hours to receive that counseling service. We put them into the Rosecrans wait list, and whether it's, a couple of weeks, 2 months, 6 months, then we referred them to them for that longer level of care, so that we ourselves don't run into that waiting period or waiting list. But we can at least assist in stabilizing the youth and then helping support the parents through that. Furthermore, we're super, super excited. We actually are going to be the very first organization in our entire region to offer an intensive outpatient program. And again, our services are completely pro bono. So if kids are receiving one-on-one counseling each week and we assess them, but they are at a higher level or at a higher risk, normally what was happening in our community is we would actually have to ship them out of our area into different states to get treatment. And again, that's furthering the trauma in families, right? So we came together and thought, okay, what can we do? And we've now been funded by the state of Illinois, as well as Winnebago County Mental Health Board, to be able to open this intensive outpatient program. So we'll offer intensive treatment where kids spend 4 hours a day receiving clinical therapeutic, and evidence-based treatment, so that they can learn those coping skills to, again, walk that path in life that will help them become the productive members of society that we know they can be.
That whole cooperation aspect of what you guys are doing, it's easy for a lot of us to look at stuff like this and think all these organizations are competing with each other, and there's such a spirit of cooperation. And as we were talking yesterday when we were chatting to get ready for today, there's gaps. It doesn't matter what you do, there's always a gap somewhere that you miss it for one reason or another, whether you don't see it or it's just something that you just can't fulfill. And yet you guys are doing your best to make sure that none of these kids, none of these needs slip through the cracks that exist, that are inevitably are going to exist. You're working. I'm just kind of scrolling through your website so people can see what they see when they go to marshmallowshope.org. You got some of your supporters here as the county and Winnebago County Community Health Board. What other kind of support have you received, or are you still looking for, that can help you do a better job than what you're doing currently?
Well, so we were actually just awarded also by HFS, which is the Human and Family Services by the state of Illinois. So that our reach will actually extend into counties outside of Winnebago County. So we'll be serving all of the northern Illinois region because again, nobody in our area is offering these intensive outpatient services. However, because we have such a huge area to cover, and all of our services, again, we don't charge families. We don't care if you have a higher socioeconomic ability to pay or lower. We don't even look at that. We just want to ensure that kids are getting the services. So we need the support of the community. We have a couple of fundraiser events throughout the year. Our biggest fundraiser is coming up. It's at Union in downtown Rockford on October 11th. If you go to the events page, you can actually see that. And so we just ask the community, if you have a business and would like to be a business sponsor, or if you, just attending the show, Miles Nielsen and the Rusted Hearts are actually going to be playing that night. So if you want to just get out and come out for a fun night, all of those things, all of the money that we raise go to serving the kids in our program. The other thing I want to mention too is we're super excited to launch this program. So on September 16th, which actually it'll be exactly 6 years to the day that Zachary died. That day we're honoring his life and his legacy by doing a ribbon cutting ceremony at our new location, which is over by Cherry Valley Mall. And if you go to our events page, again, you can see the grand opening. We're going to have activities for kids, hors d'oeuvres, drinks, and anybody's welcome to come walk around our facility. So we're still trying to raise funds to help us build a gym downstairs in the basement, because again, when these kids are with us for that 4-hour period throughout the day, we take a holistic approach to healing. So we utilize evidence-based clinical treatment, but we combine it with soulful, like body, mind, soul, exercise, art therapy, and even gardening, to give you guys some examples of the activities that we do with the kids.
Cool ideas. Very cool. So there's the Facebook page there. I think I shared that on the chat already. If I didn't, I will make sure to do that again here. Yep. Got your Facebook page up there.
So Laura, you said something a little while ago that struck me. I think it's very important. You said that he had this one best friend. They had a falling out, and that may have contributed to whatever was going on. There were obviously multiple things probably going on. I think, my own personal opinion, I think it's so very, very important that you don't put all the eggs in one basket, that you have a multitude of friendships and uncles and cousins and teachers and whoever that you can turn to if you're feeling lonely and scared and all of that. And so many of us had those feelings when they were 10, 12, 14. Say, I'm one of them. I grew up with crossed eyes, and I grew up with, a lot of different things. And I always felt insecure. I always felt like I didn't have anybody. And some very, very good friends came into my life. And of course, God came into my life when I was 16. That all helped. That was incredible. And I think it's so very important that you have those mentors. Is there anything that you work on that you can do to help foster that, like social groups and maybe even church activities or anything like that? Because I think they're very, very important.
Yeah. So, when I went back to school, I learned about protective factors, right? So what a protective factor is something that can help somebody who may be in that darkness stay alive and survive. So for example, for a young child, it could be a pet, right? I don't want to leave this earth because who's going to take care of my dog if I do, right? Or who's going to take care of my cat? So that is the protective factor. So when we created the mentorship program, we created it with that in mind. And so what we do is we pair up the kids with a mentor. So the mentor becomes that child's protective factor. If the child is in that darkness, they at least have that mentor or that, that adult to go to if, again, they find themselves struggling. So, but other things that we do, we have teen groups so that kids can be with like-minded kids and kind of learn from each other and lean on each other. We're actually also developing an app where kids will be able to talk to one another all the time. So, because the reality is kids love technology. So we're in the midst of developing that. But what I suggest to parents, getting your kids involved, as you said, in church activities, sports, building that line of protective factors for your child will help them in the long run stay involved and feel whole. Because the reality is that as human beings, we were not created to be alone. That's why COVID was so detrimental to our youth, because we essentially isolated them and we took them away we took away their protective factors. So if you notice after COVID, we had a spike in youth suicides, but that's exactly what happened, right? We as parents have to be, just have to put those things in place for our children to make sure that they feel loved and nurtured. And we also, so one of the other things that we do at Marshmallows is we also educate parents on not only the at-risk warning signs, but how to validate their child's feelings. Sometimes as adults, and I'm guilty of it, we get too busy in our own lives. And it's not that we don't want to hear that our children are struggling or we don't want to see it. It's just that we, essentially we think, hey, you guys are going to be okay, right? But if our child in that moment is truly struggling and feeling like they're not good enough, we need as parents to really sit down and validate that. I see you, I hear you, and I'm sorry that you're going through this. And then teaching them, painting that picture of tomorrow for them, painting the picture of it's not going to stay like this forever. Because again, kids don't have the capability of seeing past the right now.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree. You said it earlier too. You said we just think it's normal teen stuff. Yeah, part of it is. A big part of it is. But it's that small little piece of the pie that's not normal teen stuff. And we have to be able to recognize that. And I think that's so very important.
Yeah.
This might sound a little silly, but one of the things that I've kind of recognized in the last 10 years of owning a dog, I've had to, someone reminded me, I think it was Joanne that was reminding me that, dogs, we've all
are people too.
Dogs are the dog's life. 1 year to a human is like 7 years to a dog or something like that. Right. That's what we've heard.
Mm-hmm.
So think about what that means to a day. 1 day of a human's life is like 7 days to a dog's life. So when you're gone for a few hours, it's like you've been gone for a couple days,
No, that's an interesting point. I had not ever thought of that. My dog Knox, I can go to McDonald's and I come back a half an hour later. He's just tail wagging and all that. So what is that? That's a day and a half for him.
It's been way longer than you think, and that's why they're so stinking excited when you come back. And I think, and maybe the reason why I'm bringing this up is we kind of got to see sometimes you need to kind of see our children in that light too, that they don't see, sure, they see us as being old, but they don't see themselves yet as being old. Right. How do you get them to see past this day and this week and this month and this year to say, we're looking at you, your whole life. And I know today hurts really bad, but 5 years from now, this is going to be a blip. This is going to be a small thing that you're going to go, oh, that changed maybe a little bit of the way I think. Maybe it changed a little bit of the way I treat other people. But it didn't end me. And there's more. There's more. So, is there, I know because your organization is so young, you probably have fewer quote unquote success stories than other longer established organizations have, but you've partnered with other organizations too already, which is really encouraging. Is there something that you can kind of start to focus on as far as a success story or a success partnership, something that you're just really, really encouraged by, that your organization is doing the right thing and going in the right direction?
Well, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of success stories. When I first started Marshmallows, obviously I was a one man operation, right? And we now have 14 employees, which when I sit back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how did we
How
get
did that
here?
happen?
Yeah, so it's crazy, and we're getting ready to hire 4 more before the end of this year. But no, as far as a success story, when I myself was mentoring, I will never forget one of the first youth that I mentored was the same exact age that my son was, and he was going into high school. And his mom heard of me and was just desperate. Like, my son wants to end his life. I don't know what to do. So I start talking to this kid, and I'm like, hey, like, I took him out to eat, and we were sitting at a restaurant, and I asked him, I was like, why do you want to end your life? And he looked at me and he said, my haircut isn't good enough. My clothes I get made fun of for not having name brand clothes, and my teeth are crooked. So I get called a beaver. And to me as an adult, I was like, wait a minute, like that's not worth dying over, right? But I knew right then and there, I think that was like that pivotal moment for me that, like, oh my gosh, like these problems seem minuscule to me as an adult, but to him they were. And so, my solution time was like, let's take him to give him a makeover for his hair. And we actually, one of the things that we do is we support families with dental braces and dental care because it is so expensive. But anyhow, fast forward, he was just going into the 9th grade. And then here we are 4 years later. He's now graduated high school. He's on his way to college. And he still keeps in touch with me, so I know that someday I will be at that kid's wedding and I will be there when he has his first child. And so to me, that's a success, knowing that he was in such a deep, dark state of mind, but here he is living his best life, and so that's wonderful. It's amazing.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? And we get to see those small wins. I always say, even if just one more, then it's all worth it.
I can't speak for Greg, but you're going to make me cry here. My niece suffered the loss of her son to suicide, and we talk about it often, and she still hurts. She really does. So I just want to say, God bless you. God bless you for what you do, because you could have easily cashed in your chips and said, you know what? That's the worst thing that could ever happen, but you're making something good out of it. Not that anything good can come out of it, but maybe something can. If you save a life, 2 lives, 5 lives, 100 lives, whatever, and you get the word out there, and now suddenly the teeth thing, the hair thing, the clothes thing isn't so bad, because you know that you're loved, and you know that you have friendships, and maybe there's puppy therapy. I mean, there's so many different things that can be done, but it's got to be caught. It's got to be understood that this might be deeper than what we think, because we look at things from an adult perspective. We got to put ourselves in those shoes and look at it from that 14-year-old perspective, the kid who's hurting and feeling lost and lonely. To us, it's just something, like you said, minuscule. Great word. I mean, it is something so small and insignificant, but to them, it's not. It's their entire world. So God bless you for that. And oh boy, your ministry will be in our prayers. I guarantee you that.
Thank you. And when you talk about God, I didn't know God at all when before my son died. Like, he was more of a genie bottle, right? Like somebody I would go to and say, hey, I need this. I didn't know what it was like to have a relationship with Christ. I won't go into that too much, but what I can say is that this isn't me. It's all been God that has given me the strength and has given me the ability. I'm just a vessel. When he opens a door, I walk through it, and I know that he's leading me in the direction. Because without that, there's no way that any mom can ever survive this. And that's what drives me, is the fact that no mother should their child in this way, because losing a child, no matter how you it's unnatural, right? Or for us as parents. And so that in itself, it like does something and it disturbs our system. But losing one to suicide, it builds complex, and it's something I can't even describe in words. Like we are forever changed in this journey. And so the other side of Marshmallows is we offer suicide survivor support, so completely pro bono grief counseling to suicide survivors, meaning somebody that's lost a loved one to suicide. We also have suicide survivor support. And I can tell you that within this journey, some of my greatest friends have become moms that have lost a loved one to suicide or child to suicide. And it's because moms grieve at a whole different level. Like it changes us. It changes our just who we are. I will never be the Laura that was around when Zachary was alive. It forever changed me. You know, I miss some parts of me, the giddy part of me, truly, because sometimes it's difficult to feel the joy. Like even in this place, I can recognize that it is a beautiful legacy in his memory, and that each child that we are saving, right, has a piece of Zach in them forever. And it's a beautiful thing, but it's like, I cannot bring myself to feel that joy. And it's almost 6 years later, you know? So it definitely changes us and changes who we are. So I'm so sorry that your family has been touched by suicide.
Yeah.
Everybody's family has been. And that's
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, I think everybody has been touched by it. So in one way or another. So, and I think you probably know my niece. But anyway, I won't mention her name. It doesn't matter.
Having that group of moms that has had that shared experience is so important. I mean, to give each other permission to be giddy again, to give each other permission to continue on living, knowing that, you know what, that's what your child would have wanted, really, when you really, really think about it. Yes, they struggled with something, and yes, they ultimately did something that if they had only been able to see past that minute, they would have regretted that decision. You know it. So to have the support groups that you guys are facilitating, and to make it available to the community at no charge, it's a huge thing. It's a huge undertaking, and I'm very thankful that you've accepted the call and said, okay, God, you want me to go this direction? I'll go. I don't see past the next step, but I'll take it, and promise that the next one's going to be there. So
Greg, I think you just hit on something. See past that minute, to almost like it's the little roadblock, the little bump in the road that we see as just a bump in the road, but it's to them, it's their world. See past that minute, and wow, that's interesting. That you put it that way.
Hold on to hope. Hold on, pain ends. That's the first time I've heard of that today, and I think that's a.
Are there any T-shirts that say that, Laura? Have you gotten any T-shirts? Hold on,
pain ends. Well, these are our T-shirts currently. You can come if you don't. Yep, if you donate $25 to our org, you get a free shirt. We have the butterfly with the semicolon symbol, which is also the suicide prevention symbol. So like the semicolon, I don't know if you've heard of it, but like when you're writing a sentence and you end the sentence with a period, then the sentence stops, right? But if you end it with a semicolon, then it's just a pause and it continues. So we are the authors of our life. We are writing our story. And if we just semicolon keep going, then our story keeps going. But yeah, you can pick these up. So we'll have to get some made with the hold on pain ends, maybe hashtag hold on pain ends in the back of them. That's a good idea. We also will have, we'll have some beanies for the winter, sweatshirts. So we do have the Marshmallows Hope swag if you guys want to help support.
Is there a website for that? Is it just your normal website? Then you can scroll down, or what?
No, so they actually are not posted on the website because we don't sell them. Since we are a nonprofit, we don't sell anything. If you make a donation to us, then we just send you a T-shirt. So you can actually go to our website. and then make a $25, minimally $25, and then just write us an info email with your t-shirt size, and then we ship that to you.
All right.
Or you can come to the building and pick it up. Yeah.
All right. So the address of the building is
1628 Temple Lane, and that's in Rockford.
okay. All right. And then the website is
marshmallowshope.org. Got that in the chat for everybody there. And I'm sure our friends over at Fresh Prince of Loves Park would be glad to put on the back of your Marshmallows Hope shirts. Hope, hold on, pain ends.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be very cool.
That would be really cool.
Laura, is there anything that we did not ask you about today that you wanted to make sure we touch on? I know we've opened up all different cans of worms. We could have chased bunny trails for hours, but I think you summed up your organization pretty well. Is there anything that you'd like to make sure we add before we move on today?
No, I mean, I just want to add, first of all, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity of having me on. But what I want to add is that if you or a loved one are struggling, to please know that you would be missed, and that in no way would your family be better off without you here. And so please know that we have incredible resources in the community, whether you're an adult or a child. If you reach out to us, we do have amazing partners in our community where we can refer you to. We also have a veteran program that we can refer you to. And so again, it doesn't matter your age. You don't have to suffer in silence. There's help and there's hope, and we're here for you. So
although this organization was started and inspired because of a teenager situation, this is not a teenager organization. This is for everybody.
Yeah, so our services are pro bono to ages 9 to 26. Okay. And then for suicide survivor families, there is no age limit. Doesn't matter what age you are. If, for example, we have a 27-year-old or a 30-year-old who's struggling, we have partners in the community that we can fast track them into for either no cost services or very low cost services.
Nice. Yeah. Good deal. So marshmallowshope.org. Again, we got the link in the chat. Makes it easy to go right to their webpage and see all the stuff that's going on. Check out their Facebook page and all the events that are going on as well. And I want to Welcome to our podcast today, which we are calling How Down Payment Assistance Can Help You Buy a Home. My name is Greg Saunders, and over there now on the other side of the screen is Jess Riley from Envoy Mortgage. How you doing, Jess?
Hey, Greg, I'm good. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. It's a beautiful day in Northern Illinois, and
happy Monday.
Time to talk today.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, as we get started, we want people to know they are welcome to share in the comments their questions, and we'd love to hear where you are listening and watching from today, even if it's not in Illinois. Let us know where you are at, where you're from, and the number one thing, if you have any questions for us today, and if we don't get to those questions during our live portion of recording this, we'll try our best to get to them afterwards as well. But we really pride ourselves on being able to help our clients get the best outcomes possible. And sometimes that's fairly simple and easy to do, and a lot of times it's very difficult to do. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff here today on this podcast. So feel free to put in the comments where you are listening and watching from, and we're going to hang out here as we do this, record this live. Not everyone likes to do this, Jess. So I applaud you for doing this with me in this format.
Oh yeah. Hey, anytime I get to talk to you, Greg, I'm happy.
Appreciate that.
This
Appreciate that
doesn't
very-
this doesn't scare me. I think it's fun, and hopefully we get some interactions too. If we get questions going and stuff, I think it would just make it awesome and valuable.
Well, we do have some folks also. I did get the Instagram feed to work, so we got some Instagram folks that can watch as well. And if you put your comments, questions there, I'll try my best to see them. Those won't pop up on my screen like other ones will. So
You got a lot to look at. You're like checking screens.
there's a lot. I feel like a TV producer. I was only in TV for about 7 or 8 months. I never got to do anything like this. I worked at a local TV station making graphics and running cameras for news.
Yeah.
In the studio. I was not a out of studio person. I was an in studio person. So
yeah.
but nothing like this. This is all wild.
I got the easy job. I just gotta look at you and you tell me what you're seeing and what questions are coming up. And
well, let's start with the most difficult question of all. Jessica Riley, who are you? Where'd you grow up, and how'd you find yourself in the mortgage lending business?
Yeah, so okay, boy, let me start with I went to NIU and I got a degree in business. I have been in the Rockford area my entire life. I never really left, so I grew up here. Even when I went to NIU, I commuted. I was working while going to college, and graduated in 2010, which didn't used to be.
What did you go to? Let's not miss the high school.
What'd you say?
Which high school did you go to?
I went to Harlem.
Harlem. Okay, you're a Harlem Husky. All
Harlem
right.
Husky. Harlem Husky, NIU Husky. I've just been a Husky my whole life. So then was commuting when I went to NIU a little bit. Actually, I finished up at the NIU Rockford campus, which was fun because our class sizes were really small. So if you don't know about NIU Rockford, or if you haven't explored that as a college option, it was awesome. So that allowed me to work. I started working at a bank at that time, which is how I eventually ended up in mortgage lending in 2010. And then I have just, I've been in lending ever since, been in mortgages that entire time. So I kind of found myself really enjoying where I was working, and they were like, hey, we'll hire you after you graduate. And in 2010, like, if you had a job, that was a great thing. So it was right after
the economy collapsed in 2008. For those who might be too young to remember that, the economy was building up to a point where in 2008, a whole bunch of stuff hit the fan. A lot of stuff that shouldn't have been happening that was happening.
Yep.
We don't need to get into all the details of that, but the cause of that crash, those factors really don't exist today.
Correct. Yeah, it really changed the whole atmosphere of lending, and a lot of things changed, but specifically kind of in the lending arena. So when I started in 2010, it was a really interesting time to get into mortgage lending. A lot of people were exiting the business and telling me don't do this, and it's a really hard job, and guidelines definitely tightened up and things like that. But I feel like I was coming at it a good time because I didn't know how it was prior to 2008, like in 2005 and 2006 and 2007. So I feel lucky in that regard, and yeah, I've been in lending ever since. I've got a background working for a local bank, working for a credit union, and now working for Envoy. Envoy is really just a bank, a retail mortgage bank, but we only do mortgages. So it's really what we specialize in. And have some of the different products and programs, some of which we'll talk about today.
Okay. So that I think is an important distinction to let people know is Envoy is a bank, although they don't do checking accounts or savings accounts.
Correct. No credit cards or car loans or anything like that. We only focus on mortgages and HELOCs now too.
Okay. So that's an important distinction between other types of mortgage companies that might be out there that don't have the banking products that you might be able to offer to everyday folks who are looking to get a mortgage and buy a house.
Correct. Exactly. Yep.
Okay. So, and we're going to get into that here in just a little bit. My background, I spent 20 years in broadcasting. Never, ever thought I'd get into real estate. This was not my path choice. This was not my plan A at all. I thought I'd be in radio for my entire career. I loved being in radio, which is probably why I still love doing the podcast and doing stuff like this. But I grew up in southeastern Wisconsin, little town called Wind Lake. I went to Muskego High School. I did do some college up at UW Stout in the Wisconsin system up there, but decided to drop out when my grants and my funding was going to end, and I was going to have to start taking out loans. And I looked at what school, and this was back in 1989. Okay, so even in 1989, I was looking at it going, okay, do I really want to take on this much debt and have this career path? And I didn't think I did. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna take a year off. I did a full year and a summer session, and was doing very well in school, but I just didn't like the loans idea to go forward. So I took a sales job with a company called National Motor Club. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but we did third-party marketing. I traveled all over the state of Wisconsin, visiting farmers union members, and they were offering a motor club membership as a benefit to their Wisconsin Farmers Union memberships. And mind you, I grew up in a house where my dad was a machinist. He grew up on a farm as a kid, but I didn't grow up on a farm. He moved to the Milwaukee area to take a job with my uncle. His brother, one of his older brothers, got him a job at a place called P&H Harnesswager. They made cranes. So they helped, anything that got built and needed a crane. They were one of the companies that made the huge cranes that got things built. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom until basically my sister and I were both teenagers. Then she became a para, was a teacher's assistant. So I bring that all up just to say I didn't come from money. We were not wealthy folks by any stretch. We lived in a very modest neighborhood and didn't complete college. So some people might frown on that, but that's the truth. After my stint of being in sales for the National Motor Club for a little over a year, I got an opportunity to start work here in Rockford. I was living in Broadhead, Wisconsin, which isn't that too awful far away. But I started working here in Rockford at a place called Big Sur Waterbeds, selling waterbeds. Remember when those were popular?
I do. I had a waterbed. Yeah, they were like not just popular; they were like really cool. That was what you wanted.
That's what you wanted, yeah.
Yeah.
The low wavy ones. Did you want the extra special heaters, all that stuff? Yeah, we sold all that stuff. Right across the street from Lino's is where the store was.
Oh yeah, how funny!
Right over there. So I was there for how long was I with Big Sur Waterbeds? I was working there for a few months, and I was working part-time in radio. And I loved radio. And when the opportunity to go full-time radio came up, I jumped at it. So basically was in broadcasting for 20 years. And when that came to an end, I was like, okay, what am I going to do now?
Now what?
And Tony Vanderhayden was an acquaintance, not really a friend yet, but acquaintance. So we'd known each other for quite a while. And we were in a position, my wife and I, where we just didn't know if we could afford to keep our house anymore. When the crash happened in 2008, I had been with a radio company for a couple of years, and we did okay until about 2012. Between 2012 and 2013, when I was no longer in full-time broadcasting and was kind of doing a lot of freelance stuff. I was DJing a lot of weddings at my DJ company, Big Day DJ, was helping to keep us afloat.
Yeah.
But it wasn't great either. So Tony comes out to our house in the fall of 2012. And when I'm like, I don't know if I can afford my mortgage anymore. I'm struggling.
So you were meeting with Tony to possibly sell or see what option. Interesting. Okay.
Sell the house. So Tony sits down with us and says to my wife and I, you know what? Looking at your numbers, looking at the value of your home and everything that you're currently where you're at right now, your financial picture, I don't think you should sell your house. I think you should keep fighting, keep going forward, see what else comes up for you. But I don't think it's a good time for you to sell your house yet. This is a realtor who I'm talking to, okay? And I think it's important to bring that up to speak to Tony's character, because if any
Yeah.
other realtor had come to our house, more than likely to have said, "Yep, the sign here. We'll put a sign in your yard in next week." Not Tony. She looked at our overall situation and said, "You know what? I don't think this is the best course of action for you. Keep fighting. See what else. See where you land." So fast forward to 2013. And the spring of 2013. So this is 11 years ago, almost to the month right now where we are. We have her come back out again. And I'm like, I haven't improved much, Tony. I don't think we can afford our house. And she goes, "Well, you know what, Greg, your personality is very similar to my buyer specialist, Laura's personality. I think you'd work really well with buyers. Would you consider getting into real estate?" And I'm like, I had never considered it. But if you say I can shadow Laura for a couple days and see what she does, I got nothing to lose.
Yeah. What were you doing at that time? Were you mostly just doing like your DJing and stuff?
I was DJing weddings. Yeah. I was substitute teaching.
So all different, anything.
Yeah. So this would have been in June of 2013.
Okay.
So nearly 11 years, very close to. Spent a couple of days with Laura, and I was like, I could do this. This looks good, fulfilling. She loves what she does, helping people buy homes, and a lot of times it's their first home.
Yeah.
This is a fulfilling career to try. So I dropped everything. I enrolled in the classes at the real estate office here in Rockford, and I became Tony's assistant. So from July to September of 2013, I was Tony's assistant, weekdays, taking classes when they were available, and I got my license in September and closed my first house in November 1st of 2013.
That's my birthday.
There you go.
November 1st. We'll celebrate.
So from November of 2013 till today, I've closed probably 420 something houses, and it's been a great career. I've really loved doing it.
Yeah.
Part of the positive of doing this job is meeting folks like you and partnering with you on things, and finding out that some folks they want to buy a house and they just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So they call folks like Tony. I'm going to throw this up on the screen. So they call a place like Sold on Tony. They're like, "Hey, Tony's team, I want to buy a house. What should I do?" And one of the first things we tell them to do, get pre-approved, get a loan. One of those places you can call is Don Boy Mortgage. And Jessica Riley, here's her contact information. We usually give a few other recommendations as well, so people can kind of shop around, because it's a good idea to take a look and see what personalities you mesh with and what options and what programs and products are available to you. Because mortgages are not one size fit all.
No, and that's what I tell clients this a lot. Like, most of my good friends are, from real estate, and a lot of them are lenders, and everybody has different products and programs and options. And so what might not work at one place might work somewhere else. And there's a lot of really great local lenders. And so we're very blessed in this area in that regard. And I would just encourage people to stay local, where, you're not just a number. We, know your name. We know your family. We'll be there at closing. I was at a closing this morning, and first time home buyer and her mom. It's just always fun. It just keep it local for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start from the beginning. What is a home loan? What's a mortgage? And when people hear things like FHA, VA, USDA,
so many acronyms.
Loans, what is a mortgage, and what's the best fit for most people, I guess? Or
so in simple terms, a mortgage is essentially a loan that is utilized to purchase a property, to purchase real estate. So I guess the place to start is just with contacting a local lender once you make that decision that you want to buy a house. And even before then, it's a good idea to take some action and take some steps towards improving your situation. So that might be different for everybody, but that might mean, working to save up some money which we're going to kind of get into some grant options and things like that later. But, saving, never a bad idea anyways. Even if you don't need the money for closing, have some money set aside in case of an emergency. Credit is looked at. So obviously it's important to, pay your bills on time, make sure you're not having late payments, manage things like your credit cards responsibly. And then obviously you want to have a secure, job. You want to be employed and have a history of that employment and that income. So once you feel like you're in a good position, or even if you're not, you're just like, I don't really know what I need to do, I don't know where to start. Contacting a local lender is definitely the first step. So then we can kind of wrap our arms around your financial situation.
And I think that's one of the important things to stress to folks is just because you might feel like you're not ready doesn't mean you shouldn't meet with folks like us to kind of help you figure that out.
Yeah.
And look what Tony did for me. She was willing to say, and I am too, because I tell you, I way more like a consultant, a salesperson. I'm not a salesy person at all. I like to consult people. Hey, guess what? You're not ready to buy a house yet, but here's what you can do to get ready. Or surprise, you are ready now, and we can start looking if this is the price range you want us to look at.
Well, have that time, right? Because, if you want to buy today, but you're not quite there, you need to have a couple of things happen before that. I don't think you can meet with either of us too early. Like, I don't think that that's a thing, because we can always give you advice and help you out, tell you to pay down something, tell you to, save X amount of dollars or whatever that looks like for that specific client. It helps to have some time. Nobody likes to be rushed or, jump into something that maybe you shouldn't have jumped into just because, you didn't have time or your landlord was selling your property or whatever. It's good to allow yourself that time to plan.
Yeah. It's a little different situation. I actually have a form when I meet with people at the office. One of the forms that I pull out that thankfully I normally set aside without signing, but every so often I got to ask people to sign it. I call it my permission slip to act like a crazy person. Because
tell me about that.
Because you just told me today is, what is today? April 22nd as we record this today. It's the end of April. You just told me your lease is up at the end of July. So you don't want to renew your lease. You just told me that. You don't want to renew your lease. Your rent's going up, and you would like to be in a house by July 31st. So we need to get on the ball. We need to get going now. And so you're going to sign this form telling me you want to be my priority A client. You want me to act like a crazy person, finding you a house now, because guess what? We might find you a house in 2 weeks and you might love it. And 5 or 10 other people might also love that house. And you might not win that first offer you write.
Yeah.
And the second house might happen the same way. It might be the third or fourth or fifth time that we write an offer before we find the house that you actually get under contract. And how long is that going to take? I don't have a crystal ball. I can't tell you that.
Right.
So we're going to find you a house.
The approval process doesn't typically happen overnight. It could definitely, but if you have a unique situation, or if we have to verify your employment, meaning we have to actually get information from your employer, prior to issuing a good, solid, strong pre-approval letter, that can take time. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that home buyers today are making are thinking that process happens, immediately, and holding off on getting pre-approved or talking to a lender until they find the house that they want. And unfortunately, by that time, it's too late because, obviously we have a lot of buyers right now in the market, and inventory is low. So not a ton of homes available. And when a house comes on the market, if it's priced right and it's, in the area that the borrower's looking in or whatever, there's a very real chance that it could already have offers on it. And if that's when someone decides to apply, and get their paperwork together, it might already be sold by the time that, that letter is actually in place. So I would say in today's market, that's one of the biggest mistakes that people are making. is waiting until they find the property to talk to a lender.
Not afraid to say it happens quite oftenly that a new client that we start looking at homes with, most of the time has to lose out at least on one offer before they start to actually take my professional consultation advice on what to do with that offer. Because I think and I get it, I'm that way too. I interact with salespeople and I feel sold on things sometimes, and I'd rather not feel sold on things. I want to feel like I made a decision that benefited me more than my salesperson that helped me make that decision. I mean, that's what we like to do. So when I'm telling people that have just told me how much they love this house, okay, so let's pretend that we're playing poker. Okay, you're sitting at a table with 5 other people who also want to win this pot known as the house that you're about to buy or try to buy. So you're telling me right now that you love this house, you really want it. So let's go all in.
Yeah.
What does all in look like for you? So that's specific to the client. I can't tell you what all in looks like. You have to tell me as the client, hey, I'm willing to spend, over asking price for this house. And what else are you willing to do? Do you have extra cash? Are you willing to cover an appraisal gap if the appraisal comes in lower than the sales price we agreed to? There's other strategies involved with trying to win a deal these days. That would be one of them. But what does all in look like for you, and how can we best put your best foot forward? Because here's the other confusing thing that most people don't get about people like you and I in this situation. Finding the house isn't really the difficult part. We'll find the house. It's going to be found. The difficult part now in this market is we have to sell your offer to the listing agent and their client to win a deal with them, because they've got multiple people to choose from, multiple offers.
Yes.
Every time.
Yes.
So how can I help make you look like the winning deal? And having a pre-approval with Jess at Envoy Mortgage is one of the big steps, one of the big rocks in the box.
I feel like you're giving me too much credit, but thank you for saying that.
It's one of the most important things, because unless you're a cash buyer, you've got to have a strong lender that you know that the seller's going to like and want to work with.
Yeah, I think that is extremely important. I think pre-approval letters, just in general, maybe the last, 12 months or so, have been really analyzed stronger than they ever have in the past, because you're right. I mean, a seller might have multiple to choose from. So they want to not only look, what are you willing to pay for this property, but who's your lender? Do I know them? Do they have a history of closing deals, or do they have a history of, things falling apart later on? And, can we reach them? If we need something from them, are they going to communicate with us? Are they available at night or on the weekends when a lot of banks are closed? I mean, all of that stuff is looked at. What type of financing, a buyer has, that's considered by a seller.
Right. It really is. It's all part of the mix, and they've got decisions to make. It's the price might be the most important thing on the contract offer, but it's not the only piece.
Right.
There's a lot of different pieces, and the price might be 20 to 25% of the overall picture of the importance of what's going into the offer. So
sure,
it's more than just price. Well, some of the questions that we've heard about lending and mortgage loans these days, we just kind of defined what a mortgage is. How are current interest rates affecting affordability?
Yeah.
Interest rates have been a topic of conversation with a lot of our clients, because just a couple of years ago, they were historically low. And now we're back to normal, and people feel like they're high, even though they're really high. So
yeah. I mean, I get it, right? Like, I mean, we're going to always compare today's rates to where rates were just a few years ago. I think that's normal human nature. So especially for younger clients who don't know any different. All they know is the past, we'll say 5 years or so, but we've had a really, really long streak, not just during COVID, but even prior to COVID, of sort of abnormally low interest rates. And I'll say that, like, when I started in 2010, rates were between 4 and 5. And during that time, there was a huge refinance boom. For my first couple of years in lending, I just did refinances. I was just doing refinances over and over. And I learned a lot, but not a lot of purchases happening at that time, because I remember I bought my first house actually in 2010. And I remember thinking, like, gosh, I'm so smart. Like, look at how smart I am. Like, locking in, 4.25%. Because interest rates have never been this low. They're never going to go lower than 4.25%. And I refinanced that loan, and once they dropped below that. So even going back further, again, going back to 2010, which is when I started in the business, they've sort of been abnormally low. And then during, the COVID years, I'll call them 2020 and 2021, early part of 2022, they were just, at levels that I don't know that we'll ever see again. So, kind of reminding clients that this is more normal. Between 7 and 8% is where they're at right now on a 30-year. And that is historically more normal for a mortgage. That being said, though, I would never sit here and be like, well, they're not that low, and that, this is typical, because it does affect affordability. Meaning, obviously, your payment is going to be higher at a 7% than it would have at a 5%, right? So, one of the benefits, I think, of starting early and getting pre-approved is so you can determine your price range. And a lot of people that are applying now, aren't really sure. And that is fine. That's common. Every time I call it like an initial consult with a new buyer, just so we can hear a little bit more about their goals and, what they're looking to do. Do they have a house currently? Do they need to sell that house? Is this their first house? We do that initial consult. And a lot of times clients are like, I don't really know, what I can buy. I don't know, what price point I should be looking in. So a lot of times we end up working backwards from where they want to keep their payment. Mm-hmm. So for example, if a client says, well, I want to buy a house at $350 and put minimum down, but I want my payment to be $1,800, it's not going to work. It doesn't line up, right? So we're kind of restructuring things maybe now more than ever, based on not only interest rates, but property taxes, homeowners insurance, which is not getting any cheaper, and just being realistic with people of, okay, if you want to keep your payment at $1,800 a month, here's what you would need to do, assuming you put this much down. So we run a lot more numbers than I ever have up front to make sure that people aren't shopping in the wrong price range.
Right.
Because nobody wants to get under contract and then find out, their payment is too high and they're not actually comfortable with that. Even if a buyer qualifies there too, I'm very conscious of like, okay, here's what you qualify for, but are you comfortable with this? Because we're not always considering all of your expenses either. I have a lot of friends that their biggest expense right now is daycare, right? Mm-hmm. Daycare expenses can be a mortgage for some people. So your expenses better than I do. And so I always ask people, is this comfortable for you? And if not, then maybe we need to bring down or adjust the price point.
And that's the important thing to remember, I think, is it's not, the rate is less important than the actual monthly payment.
Yeah.
And one of the things that being a homeowner is a big benefit to a lot of people is you can lock in a rate for 30 years and you don't have to worry about your rent going up every year because you've locked in a rate. And the only thing that's going to change is your property taxes and your insurance payments, possibly.
Yeah.
And that can fluctuate, but not as much as most rent adjustments fluctuate.
Well, and let's be honest, I'm a landlord too. I have 5 rental properties, 6 doors. And I only say that because when taxes and insurance go up, your rent goes up too. right? Like we have to, as landlords have to keep up with that as well. And those things have not been going down. And that's why I think you've seen a lot of rental increases as well, as to keep up the cost of some of those things.
Yeah, that's important to know. Sticking on the interest rate theme here, do you foresee interest rates rising or falling in the coming months? And do you think it's, is it important to lock in a rate now? Is there a buy down option that some people should consider? What's the act right now? What's
lots to cover. So I think this will be an interesting year for rates. I think in the past, prior to a couple of the more recent reports coming out, like the inflation, the CPI report, I think people really felt strongly that rates were going to come down this year. I had a lot of people that really held that belief and would talk about rates coming down and refinancing at that point. And I don't personally see them coming down significantly in the short term, meaning, probably this year. Mortgage interest rates are very closely tied to inflation. And if inflation is going up or not going down like the Federal Reserve wants it to, interest rates are not going to come down. So when inflation gets to a point where the feds believe, okay, things are getting better, things are getting more under control, only at that point do I see interest rates coming down. So I only say that because I would encourage people to kind of consider that. I think I talked to a client actually this week that last year when interest rates started to go up and they were, 6%, they held off. They're like, oh, we're going to wait. Interest rates are going up. We're going to hold off. And, now they're looking at 7 and they're like, gosh, I wish we wouldn't have waited. And that's what I fear for people is, if you are going to wait until interest rates come down, just understand that might not be for some time. And then on the same side of that, when interest rates finally do start to come down, I think we will see a flood of home buyers look to enter the market, right? People who did decide to hold off, which can drive prices up. Right. The more competition out there, it's going to bring prices up. So, waiting might not be in your best interest.
No.
Now, that being said, Envoy specifically has programs to combat the interest rates, not necessarily combat because the rates are where they are, but to allow you to have a lower payment for the first few years of your mortgage in order to keep your payment more affordable in the short term. And hopefully get you to a point where you can refinance. Even if you don't, it is a fixed interest rate mortgage. So we have what's called a temporary interest rate buy down that can be seller funded for either 1, 2, or 3 years. And what that means is you need to get a seller credit in order to utilize these programs. And it would keep your interest rate 1, 2, or 3 points lower for those first few years. So this equates to hundreds of dollars monthly that a client can save, that a new homeowner can save by using the temporary buy down program, and typically thousands of dollars throughout the first few years.
And
now,
after go up on a scheduled time.
Correct. So for example, I'll just use a quick example, the 2-1 interest rate buy down. If the rate that the borrower qualifies for is 7%, right? That's the rate today where the borrower qualifies. A 2-1 buy down would be 2 points lower for the first year. So that client would start out at 5 for year 1. Then it would adjust in year 2 to 6%. And then for year 3 through year 30, it would be fixed at 7%. So this is not an adjustable rate mortgage. It is a fixed interest rate product. And I think it's also important to know that we qualify that borrower based on the 7%. So the highest the payment would ever be. So we're not putting anybody in a bad situation. We're having these conversations of, hey, this is your payment year 1, this is your payment year 2, and then it's going to adjust to this at year 3.
And let's just say 3 or 4 years from now, interest rates are wildly different from where they are today. They could be way higher or way lower. And if that's the case, you got a decision you can make. You can refinance if you really want to.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win because if interest rates go up, you're still locked in fixed at 7% or wherever wherever the rates were that you were eligible for today. So if they go up, you're going to be really happy that you have a fixed interest rate loan. And if they go down, you can apply to refinance at any time. So it's kind of a win-win for current homeowners. It's to tackle that affordability aspect. And secondly, Envoy just came out with a new program. It's called a lender funded 1.0 buy down. It's 1 point lower for the first year, no seller credit involved. So both of these programs are great options depending on what you can negotiate into your contract, seller credit or no seller credit.
Okay. And that's, again, one of those strategy things with your offer is that you can talk with your agent and your loan officer about, is this a smart thing to do? Is this going to help me win a deal? Is it going to help me afford this house if I win the deal? These are all very important questions to answer even before you go looking at houses, really.
Right.
You want to get this stuff.
And that's why it's important too to have those partners who are truly on your side. Your lender should be talking to your realtor and your realtor should be familiar with your lender and, having these conversations because utilizing like the seller funded buy down, for example, affects what you're going to offer, right? And you're going to want to write in a seller credit if you can get that for when you write up your contract.
Absolutely. I put in the chat links to our websites, and I want to bring up those real quick so people can see what they find when they click on those links. If you go to the envoymortgage.com/jessica.riley, this is the page that you're going to find. Jess,
it's got Riley. My full name, Jessica, right? My government name.
There you go. Licensed in Illinois and Wisconsin. Got a little backstory going on here. The different loan types, loan process, mortgage calculators, frequently asked questions, all that stuff. A bunch of reviews as well, and explanation of the Envoy business so you can understand what Envoy is all about. My website that I'd like to send people to is greg.northernillinoishomesearch.com. So my face might not pop up right away when you bring it up because I'm on Team Sold on Tony. As I explained earlier, I'm a part of a team of agents that has an awesome admin team that helps us take care of a lot of our paperwork. We have listing specialists that work exclusively with sellers, and then myself here working exclusively with buyers. So that's what you'll see if you go to our websites from those links today. Is there anything that a potential home buyer can do to strengthen their loan application in such a competitive market that we're in right now? Is there some piece of advice that you're giving people to say, here, let's make sure we include this on your loan app so that we can give you the best product available to help you aid you in your home purchase goals?
Yeah, I encourage full disclosure. So what I mean by saying that is, if you're applying for a home loan, which the application process is super easy, that's something that I go over on those initial phone call discussions, but include all of your assets. As an example, that's one that people leave off a lot is, I'm going to include my checking account, my savings account. My savings account has my down payment funds. This is good enough kind of thing. It's a little bit easier, maybe a little bit less paperwork. But, if you have a 401k or you have mutual funds and some different investments, that can strengthen your loan application and therefore strengthen your pre-approval. So I always encourage everybody, include everything, include all income that you have. We may or may not be able to use it to qualify, but at least I want to know about it. And if I can use it, I will. Income has to be documented. Assets have to be documented. So of course, anything that you disclose on your loan application, we're going to ask for documentation of. So I think 401k is just an easy one because I think people are like, I don't really know where my 401k statement is, which to be fair, I also don't know where my 401k statement is. I could find it though.
Either. We're not saying that you're pulling money out of it.
Yep.
We just know that it's there as
Correct.
a resource just
Yep.
in case.
Yes. So I tell people, I'm like, include everything that you have because I want to give you credit for it. 401k, just like Greg said, if you are not using it to actually purchase the property, that's okay. If you're not pulling any money out of it, it's still counted towards what's called reserves. Reserves from a lender standpoint is money that you have that you've done a good job saving that's not being tapped into for closing. And having reserves can really strengthen a file, especially if you don't have super high credit or if you're putting less money down. Adding reserves can definitely strengthen your file. So yeah, just be honest, be transparent with your lender, and that really helps in terms of qualifying. And then we don't have to ask so many questions. But a lot of times I'm like, do you have any other accounts or investments? And they're like, oh yeah, I have this 401k. I'm like, let's add that in. Give me a statement for that.
Strengthen your application, make it look as good as it possibly can, because you're winning a couple different things. You're winning the best loan product that you can qualify for, and then with your pre-approval letter, you're trying to win a deal with a home seller by beating out other buyers with the best offer that they think they want to accept.
Right.
So there's a lot of different pieces there. One of the other questions that come up is probably more focused at me than you, but we can both talk about this. In today's market, how quickly do you recommend moving on a property that you find and that I found and I like? What's the timeline to house hunting today? And I think I kind of answered that earlier in the podcast here today about some clients having to lose an offer or two before really taking my advice about going all in on a house they love. The generic look at a real estate transaction is typically between 5 and 7 weeks. So about a month and a half between when you found the house and got it under contract to when you close on the house, get keys, and can take possession. That's very generic. That's not how every transaction goes. But that's how the majority of transactions go when it comes to the real estate market in Northern Illinois, at least in Southern Wisconsin. So in today's market, how quickly do you move on a property that you find? We've been in a speed market for over 2 years, probably closer to 4 years. A speed market meaning houses that are priced right are often sold and pending and under contract in 48 hours or less. That's when you see statistics. There's a statistic called days on market, DOM, and the days on market in the Rockford area has been as low as like 20 days or 18 days. I think at one point, in January, it was down to like 18 days, but that is all properties sold in the previous month. Some of those properties were sitting on the market for months before they finally realized they needed to lower their price because they were asking too much.
Right.
Other properties were just very poor condition, and it took a long time to find a buyer willing to take on the poor condition of the property. And then you have, I would say, the majority of homes that hit the market. They're ready to be sold. They're ready to be lived in. And you can write an offer on them the day that they hit the market and close probably 5 or 6 weeks after that.
Yeah.
So how quickly do you move on a property that you like? Today. Yeah,
immediately.
Today.
Immediately. And I think that goes back to planning though, right? Like, gosh, if there's one key to this market, it's planning. It's planning ahead, having your pre-approval in place, knowing what you can afford, knowing what program you're using, looking at houses with your realtor and just knowing all of that ahead of time. If you wait until you find that property, it is too late.
Yeah. There are other buyers who've been looking for 3, 6, 9 months already.
Yeah.
There are other buyers who have written 4, 8, 12 offers on houses and keep losing.
Right.
And now they're ready to go all in because they've finally learned their lesson of what that means. So what are you going to do as the first house I got really lucky. I'll say lucky. I got fairly lucky here with one of my most recent clients who was a referral from a past client. So they knew I had worked with a family member, that I had helped them, and it took us a while, but we got the job done. We got them their house, and we won them a deal. This particular client saw me as the consultant that I am. And when we found the house they loved, they went all in. They went all in, and they still lost the first house they wanted to buy, even though they went all in. Like I told them that they needed to win. We just came up a couple $1,000s short, literally like $2,000 short from somebody else's better offer. So that hurts. It stings. And about a week and a day later, we found another awesome house, and we got it this time. So
Good.
2 houses, and that one we pretty much went all in again.
Yeah.
And so here we are, under contracts, waiting for the appraisal to come back to see just where we are at with the sales price we agreed to with the seller and the appraisal value that the appraiser is going to give it here probably in the next week or two. Do those meet perfectly, or are we out of whack? I don't think we're out of whack, but we might be 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000 off.
Yeah.
And where do we go from there?
I think too, it's important to kind of note though that does happen where you don't get the first house or the second house or the third house. And I said the key to this market is planning, but it's also patience and just kind of understanding that it's okay. And it just means that there's another one that's even better or an even better location. But it's really being patient and understanding that without getting down or, feeling upset. And I understand that's a lot of buyers are feeling that way, so lean on the team that you choose to, again, make your offers more competitive. Sometimes as simple as putting down more earnest money. When you make an offer on a home, you give what's called earnest money. And that's basically, I say it's like good faith money. I'm not going to change my mind or walk away for whatever reason. And so sometimes giving additional funds is more skin in the game, and a seller, might appreciate that. So kind of getting strategic with your team on how to make the best offer, but also understanding that, this market is unique and, willing to be patient.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's land this plane by going to the headline, which is down payment assistance programs. By the way, if you're just tuning in, I'm Greg Saunders with Team Sold on Tony at Keller Williams Realty Signature. I'm a buyer specialist on the team there. And then Jess Riley with Envoy Mortgage, there we go, is a mortgage loan officer you can meet with face-to-face here locally if you need to, which is a big deal in my opinion. It's very important to be able to work with someone who you can meet with face-to-face and get your questions answered by someone who knows what in the world they're talking about. So are there any specific government programs or down payment assistance options available for buyers in this current market?
There are. I always tell people if down payment is holding you back from purchasing a home or even looking to see if you can purchase a home, do not let that hold you back. There is almost always down payment assistance available. Some of it is from a federal level. Some of it is from a state level. Here in Illinois, we have what's called IDA, IHDA, that stands for the Illinois Housing Development Authority. And IDA is a kind of umbrella organization that puts out various down payment assistance and down payment programs. And as long as I've been in lending, there's always been an IDA program. So I've been using IDA for a long time. Currently, there's actually 3 different programs that are available for buyers. All of them are percentage based, meaning they're a percentage of your purchase price, not of your loan amount, but of your purchase price. And in many cases, the down payment assistance can help out with not only down payment, but also closing costs. So depending on the grant that you choose, and do you want me to go through the grants, Greg? I don't know how much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a forgivable grant available. It offers 4% of the purchase price. That one is capped at $6,000. and it is 0% interest forgiven over 10 years. So you have to keep that property, keep that loan, live in the home for 10 years. If you sell or move out or refinance, let's say in year 5 or anything less than 10, really, you would owe the prorated amount back to IDA. So meaning, if you got $6,000 at closing and you had that home for 5 years instead of 10, you would owe $3,000 back to IDA. You'd have to pay half of it back. Again, it's nice because it's 0% interest. So you're never paying back over and above what was given to you. But the longer you stay there, the more that's forgiven. So that's a forgivable. The second one offers a little bit more. It offers 5% of your purchase price. And this one is with a deferred payment. So what that means is it is repayable in full. It's 0% interest at the end of that loan term, or if you move out of the property. So let's say I bought it as my first house. I now made it into a rental property. When I move out, I would have to pay back the grant that I received at closing. For most people, I have to imagine it's going to be when they sell their property or when they refinance their home loan. That lien or that grant does get attached to their home as a lien. So we'll know about it. It's not something you can hide. But that 5% grant is available up to $7,500. So with $7,500 for a lot of people, that can cover their full down payment. And for some people, cover their down payment and their closing costs. Then the third grant that's available is a 10% grant. So 10% of the purchase price up to $10,000. So there's a $10,000 cap on that. That is repayable monthly at 0%. So again, 0% interest, which is nice, over 10 years. So if you receive the full $10,000, it ends up adding about $83 to your monthly payment. Which we factor in, of course, at time of closing when we're talking about what your payment would be. So all of that being said, not that anybody, would expect to remember all of that, but just know that there's down payment programs out there to help you with not just down payment, but also your closing costs.
Yeah, there. And that's just it. It's which one fits your current financial situation the best.
Right.
That's what you want to talk to a loan officer like Jessica all about. And I guess as a way to land the plane for my side of things, and I think you'll agree, if people are waiting for rates to go down before buying their next house, should rates go down in any substance, the number of home buyers that are going to come out of the woodwork is going to shoot up home prices. Home prices will only increase if interest rates drop significantly. So what do you really want to do? Do you want to be a homeowner? Or do you want to play the game of the interest rates game, which is just it's not a game to play. It's like trying to.
I bought a house last year, and this is what I tell people. I'm like, I love real estate. I believe in investing in real estate, both the roof over my head and as a landlord. And I bought a house last year when interest rates were not good. They had just gone up pretty significantly. And I'm still comfortable with my payment. Again, I look at payment very closely, and I'm comfortable with my payment. I know where I'm at in terms of rent. And when they do come down, I will refinance. But, I'm not betting on doing that this year and maybe even next year. But at some point I will, and that'll be great. That'll just be additional savings to me. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, can you think of anything that we didn't touch on that we want to before we wrap things up? I think we covered all
I did. You know what? I'm glad you said that. I have one thing to say. Pre-approvals. We've been talking about planning and starting early. Pre-approvals are good for 4 months. And I forgot to mention that. And I think that that's important because even if you're not planning, like let's say today, it's April, you want to buy closer to the end of summer. Start talking to us now. If you are pre-approved and everything looks good, that will get you all the way through the next 4 months. So it's important to know that.
There you go. There you go. Good advice. And if you have any further questions for us, feel free to drop them in the comments here. We should be able to see them, and we're glad to help. Click on the links too. They're in the comments as well, so you can go right to our websites, and we'd be glad to catch up with you in person. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for your time, Jess. Have a great rest of your week.
You too. Thank you.